I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Dysart Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that Dysart et al. Is located on the Treaty 20 Michigan territory and in the traditional territory of Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog, Rama, Otsleal, and Georgina Island First Nations. These ancestral homelands are more than a place where the Anishinaabe hunted, fished, gathered, and grew their food long before the settlers' arrival. Indigenous peoples cared for these lands and waters and have welcomed us as their guest. We pay them respect by ensuring we continue to recognize their ongoing connection to the area and by supporting the health and integrity of the lands and communities for generations to come. So could we have a resolution then to adopt the agenda?
Okay,
Sorry.
yep, be it resolved that the agenda regular meeting of council of the municipality of Dysart et al. Held on December 13th, 2022 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Well, move and seconder, I guess we need. Barry and Carm, all in favor? Carry. Okay, any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, and then we have a resolution now to adopt the minutes.
Be it resolved that council approves the minutes for the November 22nd, 2022 regular meeting of council as circulated.
I have a mover and seconder. Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, this is the start of the regular council meeting, and I don't think, Walter, I have a report from the county because we haven't had a meeting till tomorrow. Unless you want to report on the agenda, which is pretty large. Okay, so we have our first delegation. Bill Martimay, President of Gardens Retirement Departments, and I guess Bill coming on the screen there. Good morning, Bill.
Success. Good morning. Yeah.
I guess we can start off. You could maybe tell a little bit about your project to start with, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. You may recall back in about 2018 when we started this project, and we appeared before council in November, and at that time we requested a waiver on the capital sewer connection fee, and it was passed by council. It was our understanding that this was for the total development, which we planned in 2 phases. We have subsequently built phase 1, which opened about a year and a half ago. It has 66 suites in it, and we've been successful, and we've been able to lease all 66 units. And with that, then we planned and started phase 2. We really need more suites to service the community. And with that, we're putting in more 1-bedroom suites and 2-bedroom suites because there's a demand for larger units as we're doing that. And as of right now, we probably have 30 some employees from the community working there. So then, there's been a hardship through COVID and I guess inflation. We have increased construction costs, labor rates. It's tough business, like every business is tough right now. So at this time, we just like to go back to our original request and respectfully request that council waive the capital sewer connection fee for the 2nd phase of our development, which, by the way, should be open in August, September of next year. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any other information.
So, Bill, you weren't aware that there was a bill for the second part of the capital until
No,
recent, I think you said.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, no, we attended at council that time and we did not receive any minutes, and maybe ignorance is bliss in a way, but so we just carried on and we did our budgeting and planning for phase 2 and started. And so here we are today. So when we got the notice, it was quite a surprise to us.
And that's in the neighborhood of $65,000, I think.
65,000, yes, a capital got. We pay the consumption charges. We have been on phase 1, and which will be increased on phase 2 on the units water use and sewage out.
Any questions from any members of council? Well, Bill, I think we'll take the if I can call you Bill, if we take the opportunity, I think to review this a little later in context of some of the other projects we've got. And we certainly will make a decision today, and hopefully it's a good one for you.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So. Is Deb Landry coming?
Mayor Roberts not Mayor Roberts, Mayor Ferry, Murray, I'm gonna call you because I'll do that easy.
You call me by whatever you want.
Okay, thank you. I'm so used to saying that. So would you like to do a resolution just to acknowledge receipt of the delegation at this time and then make a
Yeah, we probably, well, or else we can do it when we make a decision. Whatever you think.
Okay.
But we are going to make one today.
Okay, would you like to talk about it now then since we're on the item now? Would that be better?
Sure, we can talk about it now.
Okay, sure.
Well, I do know there was a resolution passed later in that day saying that he would pay for the capital on the second, because I researched it. But I don't know. I just checked this morning on the way in. His municipal taxes are $65,000 for what he's got there now. And he has done that's quite a project. They got him assessed at 11 million now before he does the other 40 units. So I think he's a major contributor. I guess what I favor him about is he's making a place that's needed in the community. He's investing like over 15 million. And we're quick to help somebody for social housing units, and they come from Lindsay and move up here. These are people that we're looking after that are in the community. So that's just the slant that I put on it, but maybe I'm by myself on this.
No, I agree. Bill's been a great addition to our community in regard to a developer. He's built a first-class building there, and needless to say, it's been really well received by our community, and I definitely think that we should try to help him out here. He's generated a lot of tax dollars for this community, and there's a lot more coming. But employs a lot of people. There's a lot of positives. So he's for sure has pulled his end of the bargain, and I think we should definitely try to work with him.
Pat, you had your hand
Yeah, I don't know if we can talk about more other than here, but on the same note, we set this precedent here. I know we got some other big developments coming underway. So is that going to be and again, I got nothing against the project because I've been in it and it's an awesome building and the whole program in there is great on that regard. But on the same note, he pays yearly ERUs, correct?
Yeah, right? he pays for the use. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So this is his stitch-in fee for getting it started.
I don't know if we're setting a precedent. I don't know any of the others that are related to healthcare. Like he's got a nurse on staff. It's kind of like extended care, right? I don't know that they're similar, but anyway. Harm, you got anything to add? Barry?
Yeah, it's been a great project. It's really needed for the community. Just a question, is it, do you have to waive the whole? Like, could you do a percentage?
That's council's decision. We could waive 3/4 of it or.
No, I'm not saying that's the way to go, but it's just maybe
Yeah,
a bit
no,
of a
that's
discussion
an
that
option,
could
for
be
sure.
something. I don't know.
I don't know.
Throwing it out there.
Yeah. And as he said, he understood that was for the whole project. I don't. I guess you can't be too clear, can you?
Mayor Ferry?
Nancy? Yes.
Well, I appreciate the hardship and the increased cost for Mr. Martinet. That's happening to every individual in Dysart right now. And it's, a big impact on the people on sewers because it's user pay. I have a question for Barbara. Could this this 65,000 capital cost be spaced over a certain amount of time, so it's not such an immediate big hardship for him. Because you know, it was clear direction, and all the minutes from the previous meetings were of public purview. So it really could have been followed up on his end. I know he's a very busy man and he's brought a great deal to the community, but we're also now putting in a sidewalk over there, which they were contributing some, but those costs have increased exponentially to the taxpayer as well.
And Nancy, just so you, to clarify the sidewalk, he's not talking where we were trying to build the sidewalk. He's talking on the other side where there's only about 80 feet to. So I think the contribution will cover it if you pave it. Because we were going right up to the corner by the big rock there. We're not going on that side, we're going on the other side.
So Barbara, could the $65,000 capital cost be put over a period of 2 or 3 years or something on a monthly basis or a yearly basis?
Yes, so based on council's decision, that could be an option that we look at perhaps 1, 2, 3 year payment plan to help alleviate the immediate impact of the sewer capital connection fee.
Well, hobby, I throw an idea out. Hobby, we give them half. And just put it to bed. I think, sound good? So. I guess we need a resolution then saying that we're writing off 20, what would that be, 32.5?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Barbara, what is that impact going to be? Is there going to be any impact to the levy because we're already in a difficult budget position?
No.
Yes, so the sewer capital connection fee is part of the wastewater treatment plant user pay system. So it will be a stress to the wastewater treatment facilities and not an impact on the municipal tax levy.
But that is, again, because it's a user pay system, right? Okay, thank you. I would propose perhaps a third at the most.
Well, I guess we're going to vote on it here then. All in favor of a third? In favor of half? So that's carried. So we need a resolution then, Valerie?
Yeah, so be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Bill Martimay, president of Gardens Retirement Developments Incorporated, requesting the waiver of capital sewer connection fees. And further, the council waives half of the capital sewer connection fees totaling $32,900 on phase 2 of the Gardens Retirement located at 1 Sunnyside Street.
All in favor? Carried. Okay.
Sorry, Murray, we got a mover and a seconder for that, did we? I can't remember. I know we did a vote, but perhaps we can get the
Yeah,
mover and seconder. Sorry, we're
I think
going
it
out of
was-
order.
I think it
Yeah.
was Pat and Barry, I believe.
Perfect. Thank you.
Even maybe it wasn't, but we got you now. Okay. Do we have Deborah coming on or?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. Okay, I think you wrote us a fairly good letter, Deb, but if you just want to carry on and tell us a little more.
Sure. Yeah, so actually I'm here this morning to look into a bylaw that would prohibit the feeding of deer in town and also along major arteries. And I appreciate you reading my email. I did already list a number of reasons why I think such a bylaw would be needed. But I also want to say that I've had some, there's my video now. Hang on. There we go. Hi. I've also had some overwhelming support from a lot of people who also share my concerns, and namely the consequences that come from, the well-intentioned people that are feeding and taming the deer. To begin with, they're wild animals, and specifically, they're losing their natural fear of humans and depending on us for a food source, which in turn is drawing them away from their natural food sources and also the protective cover that they would get from living in the wild. It's changing their migratory patterns. We see them congregating in larger numbers, which increases the likelihood of spreading diseases and ticks. And I just want to say, like, we've lived here for 30 years and the deer have been here long before we came. And I appreciate that. But in the time that we've lived here, when people started feeding deer, the amount of deer that we see now is absolutely incredible. Our neighbor feeds the deer. There's other people on our road that feed the deer. And as a result, we can't even let our dog out in our backyard because the amount of deer waste is atrocious. It's nasty. I don't even like our grandkids to play out there. Like, we raked the leaves this fall and it's like full of deer poop, so it's really, and the deer carry, like, their poop carries, parasites and E. coli and whatever. We're not sure, but, I would assume it's not healthy. And of course, where the deer go, predators follow. And we've seen our neighbor had a deer killed by a coyote in their backyard. And I know that's not the only incident, but that's the one I can speak to personally. But also, one of the bigger things is the accidents that are on the highways. And I know there's been a number of articles in the paper recently, but I was going to ask my husband, Mike, to actually speak to that because he works, he's retired OPP officer. I'll let him introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mike.
Yeah, I just, as a retired police officer and having worked in rural areas quite a bit, and I know the OPP have in the past made presentations to council and to the MNR about the issue, because it is, it is something that was always a problem and it continues. I imagine it's worse now because I've been retired going on 11 years now, and it was pretty bad when I left, and I see a lot more deer in our yard since I've retired. And I'm the one that goes out and picks up all the poop before we let our dog out. So anyway, I know there's about 200 accidents a year in Dysart alone, and over 50% of that would be car deer accidents. So there is a bit of a drain on resources. There's also a lot of calls resulting in just having to attend and dispatch deer after they've been injured and people have driven away. So it's just, it was always a problem, and it's getting worse. And I know there have been discussions in the past in the policing community about liability issues with regards to people actually feeding them and having them congregate on roadways that are busy. And I think that might be a consideration for council, because I think a bylaw and the education program would be, something that would, prevent or help
Deter.
with that.
Yeah.
Deter.
Well, I don't think you're coming up with something new. I hear it all the time, and especially in Ward 1. It's a real problem. So I think we would certainly, I'd like to hear from members of council, but it's the same thing happened with the Canada geese. They never were native here. We started feeding them in town, and look at the mess we got now in nearly all our lakes. So when you interfere with nature, you get the penalty, and this is the penalty. Where you're right. It's a matter of time till they get a disease, for sure. Any members of council got that? I know you encountered a lot of it.
Yeah, and they're campaigning there. it was a large amount of people spoke out about the amount of deer in the same conversation we're having right now. Anyways, trying to wrap my head around how you're gonna move forward. A bylaw is going to be great, but on the same note, we got to kind of phase those deer out in regards to, if the bylaw has been stated now. We shut the feed off now. Winter's already started. They already know the program of hanging around here. I don't know. There's some thought to be put onto that, whether the bylaw gets enacted for next winter or this spring, maybe on that note, but that's the only thing I would have to add there. Otherwise, you're into a situation where you have to trap them and get them out of here. And again, you're releasing them into the wild, and they don't know what they're doing when they get there anyway. So anyway, that's all I have to add.
Process.
Support it,
Yes,
for sure.
yes.
Okay, but a lot of them don't feed them in the summer though, because they live off the flowers and the natural vegetation, so they're not gonna leave town, I don't think.
No, I know, and I know it'd take time, but just for an example of how bad it is right here, when I go outside in the summer and throw the ball to the dog, occasionally a deer will step out of the woods and go after the ball thinking I'm throwing its apples or something. It's gotten that bad.
It's not going to change overnight. And I totally agree with you there. Like, but steps need to be taken before it gets worse. Because if nothing's done, then it's just going to continue to get worse. So I don't know. Like, I appreciate you listening to my concerns, and I know I'm not the only one, but thanks for giving me your time this morning and listening. And I really would anxiously look forward to hear what your decision is on this. And like I said, nothing is going to change overnight. It didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be changed overnight. I'm not expecting a miracle, but the fact that you're willing to look at it and to do something about it, and look at when a bylaw should or could be enforced and how to go about that. I think the big thing is first of all, it would create a deterrent, and that's number one. And secondly, it would create some public awareness. And that's the biggest part. That's the biggest piece that has to start happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, does everyone think we would direct staff to bring back a temporary bylaw or a proposed bylaw? Are we talking Ward 1? Is that the critic? It's no doubt about it. The hunters tell me there's hardly any deer in the bush a lot of the times because they're all in town. So maybe they get back and the hunters will be happy.
And that's okay.
Does everyone agree to look at a draft bylaw, and then we can decide the areas and the timing? And
Yes, Mayor Ferry?
Barry?
Well, I think we could look at it for sure. I want to make sure maybe that it is just strictly maybe for Halliburton, Ward 1.
Yeah.
Like
I
Eagle Lake, the traditional deer yards are no longer. The deer seem to go to the populated areas like Eagle Lake, West Guilford, Halliburton. They don't go to the Pershing Lake deer yards anymore. Nobody really knows why. I don't know, but that's what happens now. So you can't just kind of shut down the feeding everywhere, or you're going to really hurt the deer population. So I get it in town. I understand that, but I just want to make sure we don't stretch it out too far. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Start small, baby steps.
Okay, so we'll look at the Ward 1 as the parameters in. Nancy, you have a comment?
Yeah, I agree with Pat. We need a public education portion of this, a very large public education portion. So I would ask that, staff come up with, a draft bylaw to perhaps start early in the spring when there is natural food for them to go and start looking for. And council and Dysart as a whole really encourage the public education, so that when the bylaw comes into full effect with force, people are very aware. There's no reason to continue to feed the deer because the education's been available and the bylaw is in effect.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, Mallory, do you have a resolution then to?
I can read a resolution. So Resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Deb Landry expressing concern about the deer population in town, and further directs that staff bring forward a draft bylaw to regulate the feeding of deer in Ward 1.
Mover? Pat, seconder? Walt, all in favor? Carry. Thank you. Oh, you have a question? Carl?
So staff is gonna need some direction as to what you're looking for exactly. I'm not sure. So I don't know of any other municipality who's ever regulated feeding of deer. So I'm not sure exactly where to even start with something like this. We're gonna need some firm direction on something like this, only because it is so new and out of the box. What would you be looking for in a draft bylaw?
Well,
Like, are we regulating people that have apple trees, or is it just people purposely feeding?
people that
deer?
are feeding them with the food they buy at the store, and yeah, commercial food, I guess, is what it is. I don't know who would be able to help you with that. We want to make sure it's legal, though. Maybe M&R would help. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, it's a good point, Carl.
All right. Well, we'll try to come up with something.
Well, I mean, if it takes a little longer to do it, we just gotta make sure we're right, that's all. Okay, I guess Carl, you can stay on the screen then, because the next one is Michael Fagan.
You are ready for me, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, I'd like to thank the council as well for allotting me the time this morning to present a situation which I believe affects me unfairly concerning the septic inspection program. I'd also like to thank Carl and Mallory for suggesting this approach to allow me to put through my arguments that I think are appropriate for others in the township as well. As I see it, there are two aspects in the matter, which I'd like to bring to the fore. The first is the method of contacting the property owners regarding an upcoming septic inspection. Because I think we can agree that many of the properties using septic systems in the township are secondary residences for the property owners. And a letter sent to the principal address of the owner announcing a date for an inspection. I think this is right and proper, but proceeding with the inspection on the date provided in the letter without confirmation from the property owner, I think leaves the program open to all kinds of problems. Throughout my life, for a valid appointment to take place, there has to be an agreed upon place, date, and time. Otherwise, it's just a cold call with all the, the things that can go wrong with something like that. You have to sort of take it or leave it. When I expressed this view in a recent meeting with Carl, he explained that it was set up this way, if I understood him correctly, because there are property owners who will not reply regardless whether they're planning to be there for the inspection date or not, because they want to avoid the inspection entirely. If this has been the experience of inspectors, all I can say is it's unfortunate and indeed unconscionable, and certainly would never be considered an appropriate response from yours truly. And I hope the way I eventually dealt with the matter attests to this. So just to finish with this first point, during the time of COVID, as we all know, many property owners of these secondary residences in the township have been spending a lot more time at their cottages and secondary residences where the incidence of COVID is considered to be, much less than what it is in a city environment. So if a lot of these people are away from their principal addresses, it opens the opportunity for letters to be stay in their mailbox and at their primary address, and them not getting it when the inspection department has noted a date that they're expected to come to their property and expect their septic system. So without going ahead and having a confirmation from the owner, I just think that is again an area where it's ready for problems. So that brings me to my second aspect, which refers to my own personal circumstances. Because since about 2004, my romantic partner has been a French lady residing in Provence in the south of France, and we share our lives on both sides of the Atlantic. Well, my time spent in France is usually during winter, as you can imagine, and spring, beginning in January, February, with absences of 4 to 6 months. And I've arranged since those almost 20 years to have all my bills and payments made through automatic withdrawals from my bank account. And I also have a further provision with a sister who is in walking distance from my Toronto address to come by and check my mail on a regular basis. So I can say that if there's anything she finds that requires my attention, she notifies me by email or whatever. And during the 20 odd years that this system has been in place, there's never been an occasion when I missed a deadline or an important event until this past July. I got back to Toronto from France on July the 11th to find in my mailbox the letter from the township announcing the septic inspection to be carried out on July the 6th. Well, obviously it's already a week past that date. The reason the letter was not picked up earlier by said sister was simply that she had already moved to the cottage for the summer, and knowing of my imminent return, she didn't consider there was any issues that could fall through the cracks. So when I found the letter, the first thing I did was I stopped into the township office on my next trip north. It was just a few days later. I apologized for missing the inspection, explained the reason as I just have to you council members, and I rebooked the next inspection date that was available, which turned out to be August the 7th, a month later than the original one. The inspection was carried out, the septic system was found satisfactory, and I paid the invoice for $180 promptly upon receipt of the invoice. Since then, I've continued to receive past due invoices from the Township Tax Department for the missed inspection that was never carried out or confirmed. So I think, and to summarize it, I think I acted in good faith for the missed inspection, and I certainly, rebooked it promptly. And I believe in the program. I think it's important, but I don't appreciate having to pay twice for something that was never undertaken. If you have any questions regarding clarification, please speak up.
Well, certainly this program is not easy to administer because we
I
get people.
appreciate that.
We get people, I'm sure Carl will say that just say, well, I can't come that day. And then the inspector's got to go back 2 or 3 times. So it's a difficult thing to administer. Carl, do we have a policy on this or?
Yeah, so in developing the bylaw, it was basically approved by council. So I'm the one that actually came up with the provisions of the bylaw to have that notice, what we call a initial notice. So the initial notice requires, and again, this is a bylaw that contains very specific information with regards to notifying the residents of their inspection. And what we call the initial notice has to be given 30 days in advance, so minimum 30 days in advance, which would have been in this case, because everybody's situation is going to be different, but this is the requirement that we came up with for the program. So if they fail to pick up their mail, or if they ignore us, whatever, we're going to show up on the date that's specified in the letter, unless we hear otherwise, and complete the inspection. If nobody is there or they're not ready for the inspection, then we proceed with we basically cancel that inspection. We go on to the next inspection, and we charge them because we have an inspector that's basically laid out their day with that inspection in place. So even if they miss the inspection, they're charged that inspection fee. So that's the first point. The second point is that we only have access to the mail address that is provided by the homeowner. So they have to maintain their mailing address as their principal address. And that's the only contact information we have for these properties. If we were to require everybody to reply and say, okay, well, you know, this date doesn't work, or this date does work, we're going to need more than just one additional permit clerk. Like, if that's going to be a lot of extra communication with everybody. So the requirement is that they have to notify us only if that date's not good. And if they don't hear anybody, if we don't hear anything, then we go to the property. So that's essentially some background as to how this program was set up and why it was set up that way. And it's a very reasonable timeline, in my opinion. 30 days notice. How much more time can we give them? That's my input on that issue.
Carl, if I can ask a question, have you run into this situation that I've described personally with other residences of the township?
No, not to this level where they've identified that they never got the notice, or that they were away and they never opened it. I'm sure that there have been some instances of that, whether they've they just get mail and don't open their mail. I'm guilty of that all the time.
Well, I'm pretty prompt with opening my mail as long as I'm there to receive it. So what I'm hearing is that my situation is quite exceptional relative to other home property owners in the township. And I would really appreciate some special, accommodation of it, because I did everything I could to make sure that I abided by the rules and regulations of the inspection program. And I'm still being charged twice. Any further comments?
Well, so you didn't get the 30-day notice in because you weren't in the country, right?
Exactly. And it must have just been a day or two since my sister didn't pick up the mail for me, and she would have seen that and she would have told me. So just, it was a case of one day here, one day there, where she didn't get the message, went up to the cottage, and then it sat there for the 30 days till I got back. And I came back on the 11th, and the inspection had been set for the 6th.
Well, we hear a bit of this. I've heard a bit about it where was an airplane pilot, and they were out of the country and missed the notice. But like the 30 days is, I don't know how we can go beyond that, or we'll never get the job done. So
I agree. I'm not questioning that concept of the program at all, but I think that I'm not sure if it's a case of making a confirmation call to because obviously the phone number is going to be a local number. And if there's no answer, or if the owner is not available at the time, it still doesn't make sense to send an inspector out there. And furthermore, to charge the same amount for an inspection that doesn't take place, where all they do is take a look, knock on the door, the owner isn't home, and leave a notice, and charge the same as for a full inspection. Again, I don't see the fairness in that approach.
okay. Any discussion on this? Oh, what's the verdict here? Yeah.
I think, Michael, that this is a situation which Carl and our staff have had to deal with not often, but a few times. And needless to say, everyone is different. Yours is definitely different. And it's unfortunate But I mean, I don't know, I kind of wish that the policy read that maybe we would take half or something like that, forgive half of the penalty, the payment. So unfortunately, like I say, the situation, everybody's got, I've heard a lot of stories and they're all legit. I'm sure there's the odd person who doesn't show up for his inspection because maybe he thinks he's got a problem or whatever, but it's a tough situation. Like I say, I kind of wish there was some type of a compromise there for situations like this.
Well, the compromise was that I indicated, good faith by rebooking the appointment as quickly as I could and paying for it. I think
And we
that was
appreciate
an
that.
indication. Sorry?
I said, we appreciate that.
Well, that still doesn't, eliminate my outstanding account with you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Question to Carl. Carl, I know it was asked earlier on there, how often does this type of a thing happen? Not very often.
We do have some unique situations. Again, this is one of the where they've been out of the country. This is, I think, the one-off for being out of the country. But there's others, like Murray mentioned, where there was an airline pilot who, again, he wasn't able to make his inspection, even though he didn't and he didn't identify or call to change his date or anything like that. So he wanted that he had to fly out that morning and couldn't make it. So there's been situations like that where the idea is the rules have been put in place for that program. The intentions have been put in place. And if you have to notify us, I think it's within 3 or 5 days of that cancellation. I think it's 3 days. I don't remember exact, but it is very reasonable, those requirements. And 30 days, I'm not sure what. That's quite a few days that we would have missed in this scenario between the date of the inspection and Mr. Fagan picking up his mail or his sister picking up his mail. So I'm not sure where those additional days are missed. That mail should have been picked up, and I'm not sure. I can't explain this exact scenario, how it exactly rolled out, but.
Right.
Well, I've explained it pretty clearly how it rolled out, and the situation with the airline pilot. He received his letter, obviously, and called and changed the date. I didn't get that opportunity.
No, he didn't. He
because
missed the
get
date.
letter
He got
until
double
after the
billed.
fact.
He got double billed the same as you.
Well, again, I question the fairness of that approach when there is a legitimate reason.
It's a tough spot, no doubt, for everybody, because again, we got a framework we have to work in here. Carl has to look after it. Otherwise, every disagreement becomes a debate that we have to talk about here and now. On that note too, I'll speak to on the other side of my mouth and say that when you were aware of it, you dealt with it right away. So in terms of Dysart et al. Leading the charge on the septic reinspection program, that's first and foremost of the whole county and keeping our lakes clean. But again, when Mr. Fagan got the notice, dealt with it right away. So I think that you want to be cohesive with the ratepayers we're dealing with on the same note. And again, it's not an easy one to get to the bottom of on that note. So I think in matters such as this, you bring it forth in a one-off situation. We hear what you got to say. I think it's fair that we let this one go, but anyway, it's for us, everybody else to discuss.
Well, I would appreciate that, and I think that is a fair and just approach to this situation.
I think that, Carl, the reason that the policy is there is because people, you want to get the septic done. And in those two cases, they did have the septics done. It was a logistics issue, and they did what Dysart wanted them to do. So I second Pat.
Thank you.
Very good.
Carl, how big a deal is it like to maybe change the rules a little bit? Like, I kind of like what Walt said there. It's like, we didn't really do the inspection. We did drive out there. Is that fair? What happened? We made the effort to go there, knocked on the door, nobody's there, but we didn't actually do the inspection. Is that really what took place?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what takes place. And again, we set up the schedule so that the inspectors have about 8 inspections a day. And, this was one of the 8. So if people miss it, the inspector's still out there and that's their number of inspections. We charge that fee based on the anticipated workload that we do. And
Right.
again, that $180 for a missed inspection, it is essentially kind of a penalty for missing those inspections. And those rules are very specific in the bylaw, just so that everybody is treated the same fairly. And again, I don't have anything against Mr. Fagan coming to council seeking, his objection to this specific
Carl,
situation.
if it was a, sorry to interrupt, if it was a willful missing of the inspection, I would totally agree with you 100%. But when it's a situation where the property owner did everything within his power to abide by the rules, I think that's a reason to make an exception in this case.
I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could say, like, maybe pay half of that fee or something for a missed inspection in a case like this.
Yeah.
And then, if you miss it twice, say, then your fine should be like $360
Yeah,
instead
I
of
agree with you, Barry.
180, something like that.
Logical
And,
approach.
I feel a little bit like Donald Trump here right now, all day here, trying to do the deals here. But anyway, I think it's.
Don't think like that. That would be the worst example.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm wondering if there's some way we could work around that and change the rules a little bit somehow.
We could change the structure and maybe charge $100 in a case like this instead of 180 or something. But it's definitely should be some charge for it if you have 30 days, I think. I don't think it should be free.
Even in the
Right.
case where the person has not received the letter.
Well,
Sorry to interrupt here. We had Pat move and Tammy second to grant relief. Do we want to vote on it to see if we can resolve?
we're getting more conversation from Barry.
Yeah.
So, did you want that in the form of a resolution then, or?
Yeah, I have one ready if council would like to grant relief. I'm just wondering, just because they both moved and seconded that.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back on that.
Okay, we can bring it to a vote. That's no problem. I was just
Okay.
trying to get the whole conversation out. That's all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Okay, so
Walt has a comment then.
perfect.
Like, I understand your position, Michael. I kind of agree with you, but I also understand the position that our staff are in. And like I said earlier, I'm all for a compromise. And unfortunately, things fall through the cracks, and this is a time when it did. But unfortunately, we did send somebody out there, and there was a mistake, or not a mistake made, a huge mistake made on your end, and not a huge mistake made on our end. But somehow there's got to be a compromise to make it work and make the process work. Where we start. There's not a lot of these, but this is a unique one. And like I say, I'd be all in favor of a compromise. Thank you.
Okay, so you want to read that resolution then? So it might be, I guess it might be a decision here to make here. Okay,
Okay, I'll read the way it's written right now, and then we can discuss more if we need to. So be resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the delegation from Michael Fegan requesting relief from the missed inspection attempt fee through the sewage system maintenance inspection program. And further, that council approves the request to forgive the missed inspection attempt fee and directs staff to credit the property tax account in the amount of $189.09.
okay. So that was moved by Pat and seconded by Tammy. All in favor of that? So that's defeated then.
Yeah.
Yes. Can
Guys are tough.
So can we make another one?
Yeah, we could compromise and give $100, for instance.
Like,
charge
I'd
100,
like to
100.
see it like a 50% of that
Okay.
fine. And then, but also, if it happens a second time, it can be in the same resolution that, it increases to,
So that would-
180 to 360.
Yeah, so coming forward, Carl, then we'd need to amend it, your bylaw that way. But, so is that moved by Barry and seconded by Carm? You want to change your resolution? Mallory? Then we're
I'm
splitting
working
it.
on it here, yeah. So we could say, so obviously we acknowledge receipt of delegation. And further that council grants 50% relief on the missed inspection attempt fee. Does that work for everyone?
Okay.
That means I owe $90, right?
Yeah.
It would be $94.55.
There
Yeah,
you go.
Well, you should, the fact that it was in dispute, I don't think I should be paying the interest.
Okay, fair. Well, a good thing we don't have many of these on the agenda.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, I realize it's a fairly minimal issue for council, and I do appreciate the time spent with you. But I still believe there should be some method of having a confirmation from the property owner before somebody shows up at the
Yeah,
door.
you've made that point, sir.
That's something else that you have to work out.
So we have a mover and a seconder then, and I'm sorry, you'll have to pay that's interest or HST or whatever it is. Okay, all in favor then of, you read it already, so we all in favor of splitting it then? Walt, yeah. Okay, it's carried. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll be in next time in town and pay my share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports. And recommendations from local boards. We haven't had any of those meetings yet. Unless there's been one at the West Gilbert Hall Board or something, Carmen.
Yeah, I was there a week ago. Rob Parrish has asked us to make a wish list of possible upcoming grants. So they already talked about the urinals, the new lighting. And all they have now is a sterilizer there for the dishes. So they're asking maybe we could get a dishwasher. Because the last event that was there, they actually rented the dishes. So we're thinking if we had a dishwasher, maybe more people would want to use the facility. And pickleball's picking up. They got all the lines on. That started again. They're getting ready to start the snow shuffle. And the drop zone that was supposed to just be a kid's Friday night thing has turned into a lot bigger with birthday parties. You're getting a lot of birthday party bookings. So it's getting busier and busier, and they've got the basement all fixed up now, and it's actually a neat little cave for the kids. So it's getting busier.
So is that dishwasher in the proposed budget then?
No, not yet. It isn't. No.
Okay,
No.
okay, but Tammy? I thought you gave one last time. Rails End, I guess we haven't had any rep there. BIA, Nancy, anything?
oh, Murray, sorry, before we move on, we do have a resolution just because Rails End did provide a report for us. So I can read it if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the December 2022 Rails End Gallery and Art Center report.
You have that report? I have a
Yeah, it's
mover
on.
and seconder. Walt, Pat, all in favor? Carried. Now Nancy, BIA.
I haven't received any minutes from any of their other meetings. I do know they had their ladies shopping night and there seemed to be a fair number of people in around town. I'm not sure if Pat's had any communication with any of the members yet or not.
Yeah, I did sit on one meeting there, Marie. Town Parade was one of the better ones that a lot of people have seen,
Fantastic.
which was awesome. There was some discussion about bringing forth a proposal to replace the snowflake lights, which is going to come up. Another idea that was raised was about getting Remembrance Day banners made up of local men and women that went to war and putting those up before Remembrance Day in conjunction with the Legion to also you know, the regions, we're still working the details, so they're still working the details of that out, but other than that, it was a good meeting in that regard, so.
Thank you. All sounds positive. Source water protection, I guess we haven't got anything there. Upper Trent, nothing there. And bioenergy, we don't have anything there. Okay, fire. Just Dan will come in.
Good morning.
Morning, Dan.
It seems to take a while to get in sometimes. So for a quick report there, if you see the numbers, things have changed a little bit from last year. The numbers are a little bit lower in the long scheme of things. Looks like we're trucking along in the same sort of ballpark. We're only down about a dozen calls. But if you notice, there was a lot of structure fires in the last month. Mostly end up being minor things, but they certainly were involved in someone's house. And we did lose one home in our own area and one in the Minden area that we were involved in.
That because of wood stoves?
I'm not positive about the one for Minden. Never got confirmation on what the source is for that. The one that we lost locally was actually charged, I believe it was from a generator charging somebody at the battery charger on it. So exterior wasn't inside the house. Unfortunately, went up the outside wall of the house and got into the attic. So in that particular instance, and I reflecting back, the month of October was actually quite quiet for medical calls, which was good. Everyone's being
Which is good.
Yes, but we can see that it's picked back up again in the month of November. And then the other thing I had mentioned there, last month I had been directed to seek out a second deputy chief, acting deputy chief, and that's been successful. I put a name forward. I just didn't give you enough notice, so I've requested that we put that in formal bylaw for next month.
Good. That's it then. Any questions for Dan? Resolution then, Mallory?
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the fire department report for November 2022.
Mover and seconder, Tammy and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaw
Thank you very much.
2022, do you want to talk about that? Or-
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. So that was just an update. The draft went in last month. So everyone had a chance to review. So hopefully that's all been fine. I haven't heard any comments back for making any changes. So it's just for our emergency response plan. It was mostly just minor updates to new statistic numbers for the and actually just updating the names, because the MNRF is now the MNBRF. I'm not even positive. Minor changes like that needed to be put in there, and that's all been corrected and updated. So
it's mainly it's name changes then.
yes, just a few updates like that. Contact information. We did add there was a flow chart in there that's more specific to Dysart itself for the positions for the Emergency Operations Center. And that's just for clarification purposes only.
Okay. I guess we have a resolution there, Mallory.
Perfect. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-112, being a bylaw to adopt an emergency management program and emergency response plan, and to meet other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached hereto.
You read the bylaw, mover and seconder. Walt and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Public Works.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Ken Rob.
Perfect. First up, we have a bridge weight bylaw. So this is a follow-up to a report last month for the Koshlong Lake Bridge. So repairs have been completed. They added a second timber girder beside the one that was broken. It's been reevaluated and it is now being assigned a triple load posting of 16, 29, and 42 tons. So what that means is a single unit can be no more than 16 ton, truck and trailer is 29 ton, and truck and 2 trailers is 42 ton. So concern we had after this latest assessment was the fire response. So engineers did look at our 3 pumpers that we have in-house, and they've determined that it will not affect their ability to cross the bridge. So we do have a letter of exception for the fire department to respond to calls down there.
Pat?
So moving forward, we did talk about it a little bit in round 1 of the budget. It'll be coming up again in round 2. Basically come up with a game plan to what we're going to do with this bridge in the next couple of years to remedy this triple load posting, because it is in our asset management plan to not have any bridges with load postings on them. So this is a pretty important bridge. It services a lot of people in the 2 camps for sure. So something we want to get moving on pretty quick.
Okay, Pat?
Rob, if I could, again, looking at the pictures, and I've been under the bridge myself, I didn't see any rotting, and of course, I'm not taking liability an engineer would, but on the same note, with full loads of kids going up into Wanakita, plus a loaded tandem truck with a wing and a plow and everything like that, you're going to be pushing 20 tons. And not only that, but construction vehicles going up in there. I'm wondering if when I read the report, it looks like the engineer typed it into a software system that spit out a green light or your numbers as you stated. But I'm again, you know, in terms of pile caps and piling and the VC fur that's you know, under the bridge and everything like that, they look straight and not rotted and everything else. I'm wondering if there's a way to revisit that. Otherwise, you know, you're gonna have kids, and again, this is me maybe exaggerating it, but half the kids get off the bus and walk across the bridge and get back on the bus and go up the hill or whatever, or half loads of sand in terms of winter maintenance. You know, that's I'm just wondering if there's another way that could be reevaluated to get that to 20 ton. At least you get a tandem truck with a plow and sander or service vehicles in there that would cover that. And don't get me wrong either. Like if the bridge deck was, you know, rotted and disfigured and everything else, and by all means, but it's my own opinion, of course.
Yeah, and I've talked to them a little bit about this, and what it boils down to is the study was done in accordance with the bridge code. So, I mean, they are kind of confined to what they can and can't say, and it boils down to risk for the engineers and for the municipality. And so it's my understanding these bridges that were put in the 50s and 60s, they weren't designed for the loads they're taking now anyways. So if we looked at several other bridges, it could very well be that they require a load posting. It's just that they haven't shown signs or defects to give us that warning yet. And I mean, from a snow plowing perspective, our trucks are much heavier than what it's posted for. So we are making some kind of changes in-house. We're using a lighter truck to carry on from the bridge in. I've spoken with First Student Bus Lines. Their buses are about 10 tons, so they should be okay. I expect the coach buses are probably a little heavy for that bridge. So we're gonna have to reach out to Wanakita and just put them, you know, give them the heads up on that. But at the end of the day, it's all based on risk. So like we have a letter of exception for the fire department. So if something happens, then, you know, insurance would still cover it, or the engineer's insurance would cover it. But if somebody took a loaded dump truck over there and they didn't have the letter of exception, they'd be on the hook for a bridge because their insurance just would not cover it. They weren't supposed to be there in the first place. So even though the load posting, it's kind of a generality, we can get some letters of exception, which we've done for the fire department. But I'm just not sure how far we want to take that. If everybody else wants to get their own letters of exception, I guess that's okay. And everything's always okay until something happens to the bridge. And that's the issue, is everything's okay until it isn't. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but it boils down to risk.
Concern would be with that bridge, would it be the footings then because it was so old, or?
No, it was based on the timbers. It's the evaluation was determined and governed by the timbers only, the timber girders. So the piles were not taken into account there because they didn't show any signs that they needed to be included in the evaluation.
And yet the timbers carried that extra weight all this time.
Exactly. And that's the unknown.
Doesn't
These
seem to
bridges
make
are
sense.
inspected every 2 years, and that timber could have broke the day after the last inspection or the day before this latest inspection. It's just one of those things you don't know and you'll never know.
Go ahead, Pat.
Well, Rob, in regards to a letter of exception, say there's a big job going up in there, could a contractor get an insurance policy to tie that bridge up in regards to any liability from that? Or was that something that Dysart would take, or no? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. I think I know where you're going with
Yeah,
it.
to put a rider on the bridge, so say, say someone's insurance company could put a rider on the bridge for a time span of a month or 3 weeks or 1 week, and say, yeah, we'll insure that bridge for whatever.
That's something I'd like to talk to the engineers about, quite honestly, because it would involve inspection from our end too.
I
right?
see, okay, yep. All right.
Okay, so resolution and, Mallory?
Okay. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-111 being a bylaw to limit the weight of vehicles passing over bridges be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached hereto.
Mover and seconder? Walt? Carm? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Bridge weight limit bylaw. We're not.
Oh, no, now we're on the,
On the bylaws, on the.
yeah, the next one, yeah.
No, the bylaw enforcement officers?
Yeah, so this is just another tool in our toolbox. It's something that we've had here for several years. It's by no means going to say that we're going to go out and start towing vehicles every day. That's not what we want to do. But from time to time, we do have to remove vehicles that are in the way of snow removal vehicles that just quite honestly refuse to move. I've been here for 12 years and I think we've used this twice. So it's certainly something we don't want to do. We prefer to use education, which most people are pretty good at. But at the end of the day, we have to get our snow plows through, and this is just the tool we need to do it.
Well, I think we do need that from the sound of, especially if you get a lot of snow around Christmas. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, Mallory,
Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-113 being a bylaw to appoint bylaw enforcement officers for the removal of vehicles interfering with the movement of traffic or with the clearing of snow from municipal roads be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached hereto.
you mover and seconder, Barry and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Fuel card lock.
Yeah, so we touched on this in round one of the budget. So we're seeking pre-approval to move ahead with this purchase. It will be a sole procurement through Comco Canada Limited. So this is basically piggybacking on a tender that the county and the lower tiers did last year. The based on the rack price versus retail price, we're expecting a payback of less than 2 years on this. So there's certainly some soft costs associated with it. The reason I'm asking for pre-approval instead of waiting for the budget to pass is not so much on the supply chain issue. It's on the pricing. So the vendor has stated that there will be a pricing increase in January, but they can't say what that is yet. They said it could be 5%, but it could very well be higher. It could be lower too. So if this is something that council wants to proceed with, then it's very advantageous to get it moving now, and it can be in place probably by May.
Is that for both diesel and regular fuel?
Yes, that's right. So we own our own diesel tank now. So this price includes a separate gasoline tank supplied by them, as well as it's basically a turnkey operation with the exception of some IT upgrades that may be needed just to get the system patched in. But there'll be some interoperability as well with the neighboring municipalities should we need that. So the county can fill up at our yard. We can go fill up at Stanhope if need be, that kind of thing.
And who's the supplier there? Is that tendered or how's that work?
For fuel?
Yeah.
Yes, we have our own fuel tender for diesel right now. But the county has a tender out for gasoline as well that we can piggyback on as well. So when the time comes, we can hop on that tender.
Okay. Okay, we had our own fuel out there 30 years ago. It disappeared some of it, so we went to the garages. Anyway, we have resolution, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council pre-approve 50,000 for the supply of a fuel card lock system at the municipal roads garage located at Highway 118 for the installation in spring of 2023. And that council authorize Comco Canada Limited to proceed with the supply of a fuel card lock system for the cost of $45,789 plus applicable HST through the single source provision of the municipal purchasing policy. And that the cost of the project be funded by the Modernization Reserve Fund and be included in the 2023 municipal budget.
Have a mover and seconder. Barry and Tammy, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Yeah. Pardon? Oh, Nancy, I'm sorry, I missed you. Not used to you being up there. Hmm? Okay. Okay,
Moving on.
yep, we're on.
So this is going to be an update to policy number 11, which governs access to municipal sand stockpiles. This is an ongoing issue year over year. We're not the only ones with this issue. The surrounding municipalities experience the same thing. We're a little more unique in that we only have 1 yard and we have about 14 pieces of equipment operating out of that yard trying to load sand. And it seems the last few years, members of the public have been showing up, which is they're allowed to do under policy 11 to get a small amount of sand for personal use at their homes. So you can only imagine when there's 14 trucks trying to load up and somebody's walking around with a pail and a shovel trying to load up with some sand, there's going to be some conflict. Our fear is personal or property damage. Not to mention if somebody's there after hours and perhaps rolls an ankle or has a heart attack, something like that. It's not going to be good for the municipality. So this is more or less a stopgap for this winter season we're proposing. And what we'd like to do is move the sand stockpile, put a small amount down by the tennis courts in that one Park Street parking lot. And the hope is that we keep members of the public out of daily operations at the municipal yard. It's something we very much want to revisit in the spring to see if it works, see if there's a better spot, that kind of thing. But I think given that winter is here, it's a good place to start. We could very well go through some more sand, I'm anticipating, given that we're talking about it in open council now and it's going to be advertised somewhat. So what we can do is just keep an eye on how much sand we go through every year. I know Minden had some issues with perhaps some commercial users loading up from the public sand. So it's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on too. And it should also be noted that we're not obligated to do this. So this is kind of a service we're offering to help people out. Excuse me, to help people out at their home during, in particular freezing rainstorms. But the flip side of that is when people need the sand the most, that's when we're at our busiest. So, it's kind of a bit of a bee's nest out there and you got all this equipment going this way, that way, and you got members of the public coming in as well. So again, it's just going to be, I want to revisit this in the spring to see how the program works. But at the end of the day, we just sooner see members of the public not show up at the roads garage to get sand with that much equipment operating.
Okay, everybody understand that? Do you have a resolution then, Mallory?
Be it resolved that council adopts amended policy 11, being a policy to govern access to municipal sand stockpiles, and that council directs staff to return with a report on similar policies from surrounding jurisdictions at a later date.
Mover and seconder. Nancy and Carm. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, let's do Andrea then. Andrew's off sick.
Good morning.
Morning. Okay, Parks and Recreation update, and you have provided that to us.
Yes, that was provided by Andrew, the Parks and Rec update. So they're starting on their winter projects and the regular maintenance is continuing. And then there's something about the Parks Department received a new Dodge truck, and there's something you'll see later to do with a surplus truck.
Okay, you want a resolution then?
Yes, I think it's just to
Sorry,
Go
Andrew.
ahead, Mallory.
Okay. Be it resolved that the Parks and Recreation update for December 13th, 2022 be received as information.
Mover and seconder. Barry and Tammy, all in favor? Carried. Okay, playground equipment.
Yes, so as on Friday, I talked a little bit about this. I do have some good news to share, which we're allowed to say publicly now, is that we're the recipients of a $150,000 OTF grant for accessible playground equipment. So that equipment will be to complement the other equipment that will be going in. So when we had our fundraising committee meeting last week, we took a look at the initial plans that were shared with us and had a bunch of requests and changes and everything to make. I communicated those with the company. I have since heard back from them, but they want to have a phone call later this week to just discuss everything and make sure that they fully understand what it is that we're asking for. So I don't have anything really new to share at this point, other than when the committee did meet, they talked about possibly needing like a phase 1, a phase 2, and a phase 3. So phase 1 would see the main installation. Phase 2 could see some individual pieces that could be added after the fact, like spinners, wobble boards, musical instruments, items like that, that are more on the periphery of a playground. And then phase 3, they are requesting the possibility of having a shade shelter in the vicinity of the playground, that where families could have like a picnic and kind of watch their kids, something larger than what's on the Rotary Beach side. So they were saying maybe 20 by 20 in size, and some benches added in. So that's something they're thinking if they fundraise above and beyond, then some of the funds could go towards those type of items. The accessible playground grant, we want to get that one nailed down right away and order. With all of this, we'd like to, as soon as possible, bring some finalized plans forward so that we can order things and have installation happen in the spring of 2023. So
I'm
that way we
confused
don't go-
about the budget, confused about the budget there. Are we spending $450,000 then? Or 300?
So previous council committed up to 300,000. 50,000 is what the playground committee is trying to fundraise.
Trying to
They
raise.
believe they'll get more than that. The accessible grant was for $150,000, and we have to keep the lines separate. Like the equipment can end up being somewhat blended, but as far as the grant is concerned, we have to have a separate column, price tags, everything to get us to $150,000, and then we can complement with money from council towards the remaining part. We've been kind of shooting towards a $350,000 project in total, but perhaps we don't know what the unforeseen are underneath the ground and everything. So this maybe provides a bit more.
You know what's underneath the ground, sawdust.
Yeah. Oh, I've also heard there's big slabs of rock under the ground there that kind of can interfere with some of the construction. But yeah, so it's when we're putting things together, you're going to see the OTF portion and then the portion that's committed from council and the fundraising committee as two separate line items, just because we have to keep it that way for the grant.
Okay.
Tamara, do you want to, I don't know, Tamara might have more to say to that, but.
I was just gonna say, it's still the 300,000 is
Yeah.
what's coming out
Okay,
of
that-
reserves from
Yeah,
council.
I didn't read it
Just
that way,
doesn't
but anyway, I'm glad to
impact
hear
that.
that.
And we will look at, like, we did look at the quotes, and we will look at ways to reduce the costs. So that way maybe perhaps site prep can be done in-house, or we'll have to look at that, but right now we're just getting plans and then hopefully can scale back on some things and make it more affordable.
Oh, we still want a good park.
We do, yes, definitely.
Okay, any discussion before we have the resolution? Okay, Mallory?
Be it resolved that council receives the Head Lake Park Playground Structure Replacement Report for information purposes.
Mover and seconder? Walt and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay. Surplus equipment.
Yes, so this is the truck number 67. Was the truck that the Parks Department was using for a lot of their snow removal, et cetera. That truck now has been declared a surplus, or we're asking that it be declared a surplus so that it can go to the bids and tenders page and be sold, expecting around $5,000 for it. The body is in rough shape. There's a lot of rust and everything, and the dump box requires repairs. So this truck was replaced by a new Dodge truck, which we already have taken receipt of and staff are using.
Okay. Have a resolution then?
Be it resolved that council authorized truck number 67 be declared as surplus equipment disposed via online auction and all proceeds be transferred into the vehicle and equipment reserve fund.
Mover and seconder. Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carry. Okay, so I think we'll take a break, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we'll get Carl and Bree and Rob here for building and bylaw. Okay. Okay, Carl?
All right. So the building permit report. So this is the first time some of you have seen a building permit report, so I'll go through it a little bit. I do like to provide the number of dwelling units that we typically issue every month. I like to break it down between dwelling units and seasonal dwellings. The actual building permit, so page 2, the building permit report itself. So we could see that we have October and November here because I didn't provide a report in October, council. It give you the number of permits issued for that year, for that month, the construction value of that month, and that'll break down the major residential, commercial, minor residential, and septic permits. Major residential is any construction value over $50,000. Minor residential is anything under $50,000, breaking down those two items. The second page of the attachment, so monthly permit fee revenue comparison, I like to provide that as that gives a good indication as to the value of the permits that are issued. So construction value is one item to identify the construction value, or sorry, that the complexity of the projects that we're dealing with, but permit fees are another way. So if we issue a lot of shed permits, construction fees are going to be down, or sorry, permit fees are going to be down. So that's a good way, good matrix to measure the complexity of what we're doing that month for each specific month. The last chart is basically average daily inspections. This is a fairly new one I brought in, I think June or July, because our inspections were going up significantly. Like we had several days where we were over 20 inspections, which had never happened before. So I just wanted to start tracking that for comparison purposes as well. Any questions with regards to the building permit report?
No, I think it's a good way to report it. It's very easy to follow. Good.
All right.
Any discussion before we have the resolution? Okay, Mallory?
Okay, be it resolved that council received the October and November 2022 building permit activity report as information.
Mover and seconder? Pat, Walt, all in favor? Carry. Okay. I don't know, Carl, are you starting this one or?
Yes.
Yep.
So this is the proposed changes to the bylaw, the building bylaw and fees. So why are we doing this? It's been this has been a process that's been in the works for a little while, pre-COVID, and it was kind of put on the back burner during COVID and whatever else. So we're bringing it up again this year. So some of the proposed fee changes that we want to bring into place. So increasing our administration fee. So our administration fee is a fee that's added on to the building permit fee itself once it's calculated based on the square footage. Sorry about that. The administration fee we're proposing to increase from $100 to $150. The residential permit fee of 70 cents a square foot, we're looking to bring that up to 80 cents a square foot. Same as the industrial fee. Increase for accessory buildings as well as renovations, new foundations, those types of items. We're looking to lump in at 60 cents a square foot for all those items. Our minimum permit fee, we currently is at $100. We're looking to increase that to $150. Our septic permit fee, we want to decrease from $875 to $650 because the amount of work that we do for a septic permit does not warrant that fee. It's essentially that $875 is carryover from the health unit fee that was in place when we took over building permits. That fee was maintained at that same cost. We want to bring it down to a more rational fee that mirrors the amount of work that we do with them. And then just an increase in miscellaneous fees. The big one is the proposal new fee for outstanding building code orders. So these are orders that are issued by the building under the building code for construction going on without permits. That's one of the biggest ones. Other ones that we deal with are unsafe buildings, where we have the ability to issue an order to remedy unsafe building. And if those aren't carried out within a specific amount of time, there's going to be a monthly fee of $500. That's going to, we're basically review the item, make sure that's still in standing order, if has there been any updates to it. And if it's still in standing order, we're going to send you an invoice with the basically reminding you that there's an outstanding order. This has to be dealt with. And that's basically that process itself. So the rationale we contain within the bylaw. Basically, the Building Code Act requires us to give notice of the public meeting. We have to give a minimum of 21 days notice, or giving that 21 days notice basically for the meeting in January, the council meeting in January. We're giving the rationale, the purpose of the fee change, and as well as our cost to administer and enforce. Those are all requirements of the Building Code Act that we have to provide, contained within this report. So one of the things that we do is we do give some breakdown of neighboring jurisdictions as well, how they compare to our area. So you'll notice that Haliburton County, we're all essentially the same. At some point, Algonquin Highlands put their fees up and the rest of us didn't. So we're basically bringing our fees up to match Algonquin Highlands. But if you compare that to any area outside our jurisdiction, even Bancroft, their fees are, considerably higher than what ours are for everything. Except for septic permits, theirs is $600. But the other jurisdictions, you'll notice, so Gravenhurst, $450 for a septic permit. That's what our septic permit fees were in Simcoe County, because at the time that we took over septic permits from the health unit, that was the fee, was $450. So bring it down to $650 in comparison to the other neighboring jurisdictions. So Kawartha Lakes, Trent Lakes, their fees are still considerably higher than $650, even the $875. But it's been the goal of Haliburton County to try to bring down our septic fees. And I think we're going to be the first jurisdiction to do it. But at the same time, we have to increase our building permit fees to make up that offset, as well as we got to increase our fees every now and then, because just comparing that to the other jurisdictions, like $1 or more per square foot, we're well out of the ballpark for being, having a fee of that nature. But just a 10-cent increase, I think, is rational. Then we go into proposed bylaw changes. So because we're opening up the bylaw for the fees, we might as well update our building bylaw. I've never updated the building bylaw since I've been here. So basically just bringing it up to some practices that are currently, that we're currently using. So one of the big items that we're looking at, so section 2.6 in the bylaw, is identifying that that order and the fees for that order review. So a process within the bylaw for that. 2.7, we're adding an additional thing. So for stale applications, again, many times we review a permit application, we send them a list of things that they need to correct before we can issue a building permit, and we never hear from them again. They sit in our drawer. I've got a drawer full of old applications. Let's put a time limit on those and actually collect the administration fee for any of those permits to close them. So that's basically 2.7 is what we're proposing there. 2.8 is basically if they don't pay that invoice, it gets added to the tax roll. Some of the other updates that we're looking at, so requirements for permit applications. Again, we don't require 2 copies of the application anymore. We want them digitally. We want them via email or through the portal. So submit that. Even though we're still going to take them over the counter, we want people to start basically I'd say 99% of our applications come in electronically now, and that is great. So some of the other things, so just identifying that we're take digital plans now and not drawn to scale. What else? So the as-built, we're including this as section G to 4.1 as an as-built for the septic system, only because we had one installer that was fighting us for requiring it because it wasn't specifically contained in the bylaw, even though we had H, which is basically the chief building official may require that a set of as constructed plans be submitted upon completion of construction. That's essentially what we're using. Now we're specifically saying that we want as constructed plans for that septic system, and essentially identifying what we want on those as constructed plans. If you look at the Schedule A, these are new proposed fees. So $150 plus applicable building permit fee for anything contained within that column. So then we go into sewage system fees. Oh, so one of the things that I changed a little bit on here was the facilitating facilities on municipal housing projects that have entered into agreements with the city of Kawartha Lakes for the basically the low cost housing projects. Those that's still at $0 per square foot. The only thing that's different here is that they would be subject to the $150 applicable building permit fee. These are big projects, and for collecting nothing, let's at least collect $150. I don't know if that goes back on any agreements that we've made with them in the past, but I mean, $150 for these big apartment complexes, it's a drop in the bucket, I think, for the construction value. It's not really going to add much. Sewage system fees, again, for a $650 for a complete system, class 2, 3, 4, or 5, and then a partial system, so replacing a tank or bed, $450. Our miscellaneous fees, so this is where we have our outstanding building permit order fee, so $500. The other one that I clarified was the reinspection fee under our miscellaneous fees. So I provided verbiage in there. So it's not for a failed inspection. You're allowed to fail an inspection, but if we go to the property, so similar to the thing that we just talked about with the septic reinspection maintenance program. So if there's no access provided, or you fail to cancel the inspection when you're not ready, and for this has always been a requirement, inspections for permits issued more than 4 or 5 years ago, that fee is going to be $150. So that's failure of the contractor to notify us that they're not ready for the inspection or to cancel the inspection. Otherwise, those are the changes that are being proposed. I have notified the Home Builders Association that we are going ahead with proposed changes, and that this report would be available on the website. I did give them some background information as to why we're changing the fees. I haven't heard anything from the Home Builders Association, but that's the report. If there's any questions on that one.
Question, Pat?
Carl, I'm a member of the Home Builders Association, and I know they'll be happy to hear that the septic permit fee's gone down to $650. I think that's a great indication of trying to support the septic inspection program and new septics and everything. That's a great job.
Good point. Good point. All right. Any other discussion before we have the resolution? Oh, Nancy?
Thank you, sir. I just had a couple questions for Carl. So all of the fees that are generated for permits, inspection and all that, who does that invoicing and receiving? Is that finance that does that?
No, that's so our I calculate the fees and then our permit clerk collects the monies. Finance, I don't think has a big part in that role at all. They also give us the what do they call that? The monthly balancing report. I can't remember what that's called, but they give us that to do as well. So I'm not sure what their indication is. Now, part of our indirect costs for building permit fees is we do provide some money to finance. Barbara can correct me if I'm wrong, but we do provide some money for that because they have the software for our invoicing, whatever else. But that's basically the extent of that process.
Okay, and my next question was the permit fee reserve. What is that actually used for?
So the permit fee reserve, what a lot of municipalities have that for is at times when building permit activity drops. So again, if in a time of a recession or we're not meeting our goals, then it offsets our costs so that the tax base doesn't incur that cost. It's also used for our capital item purchases. So basically upgrading our city view or purchasing vehicles, those types of things.
Sorry, I have a lot of questions. And so the outstanding building code order of $500 a fee for that, how often is that applied?
So one of the reasons why we brought this in, because we have a unprecedented number of permits. We have over 2,000, it's over 2,000% increase in our orders that we've issued. A big part of that is our septic maintenance program. But our building permit, just our typical building permit orders have increased significantly as well. We're at I think 111 permit orders as of this morning. So, and we see a lot of times when orders go stale. So basically we send the order and they don't take any action on it. It sits there and we don't have the time to prosecute those. We don't have the time to continue following up on that. So we are looking through our budget process to bring in an additional permit clerk position, as well as a second bylaw officer that would follow up on those types of orders. And those costs are going to be basically pay for those additional positions.
But the $500 fee, is it a one-time fee?
No, it's a monthly fee.
A monthly fee?
Every month that their order is outstanding, that they haven't complied with it, they're going to get an invoice for $500.
Okay, and how often would that be applied onto their tax roll?
If they don't pay it. So if they don't pay that invoice that we send them for the outstanding order, it's going to be added to their tax roll.
Okay, so then that would be something that finance has to do as
We send the invoice, and if they don't pay it, then we notify the finance that this is an additional fee that's going to be added to their tax roll.
Okay, and then when they collect that, does that go back into your permit fee reserve?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Nancy. Any other questions before we have the resolution? Okay. Mary?
All right. Be resolved that council receives the proposed changes to the building bylaw and fees report as as supporting information for the proposed introduction and changes to fees for the administration and enforcement of the Building Code Act. And further, that a public meeting is to be held on January 24th, 2023, during the regular meeting of council for the proposed introduction and changes to the fees for administration and enforcement of the Building Code Act.
Okay, mover and seconder. Pat, Walt. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Okay, Carl. Septic maintenance inspection program.
So this is going to be Breeze. She's going to do the talking on this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, hi, council and mayor. So we're proposing, or we're bringing forth a couple of minor changes to the septic maintenance bylaw itself, as well as adding in and kind of reconfiguring some of our fees from our previous bylaw for the septic maintenance program. So again, with what Carl had mentioned, with his fee changes, we also are providing a minimum of the 21 days notice for the public, as required by the Building Code Act. We, for the most part, with regards to bylaw changes, we're mainly just kind of clarifying our requirements with our third-party inspectors. So we still have our septic maintenance program available. Homeowners still have the option to hire a private inspector to complete their inspection rather than having one of our seasonal inspectors go out and do it for them. If they prefer that option, it provides a little bit more flexibility for homeowners with regards to scheduling and stuff, for weekend inspections and such like that, and promotes business within the community. So we've left that as a viable option for people to choose if they wish. However, we have had a little bit of challenges with getting on the same page with our third-party inspectors, where it comes to the inspections that Dysart staff are carrying out and ensuring that third-party inspectors are meeting the same standards. So essentially within our bylaw changes, we have required a mandatory information or training session to be attended by third-party inspectors that want to have their reports accepted under our bylaw. So it'll be, we really haven't worked out the logistics of how long of a session that will be, but that'll be kind of through Carl and myself, essentially kind of going through step by step what our expectations are, how we carry out our inspections, and how we intend for them to carry out the same, and then also with their reporting and how we want the information to be received to us. So what this gives us is it gives us the ability to kind of govern who is a third-party inspector locally to us. So not only do they have to have the required inspections as laid out in the building code, or sorry, the required qualifications, but they have to be somebody that we have had a discussion with, and we feel that we're on the same page with them, and we have confidence that they're going to carry out the inspection the way that we expect them to. So that was one of the main changes to the bylaw. The other one is clarifying. So to kind of further on to earlier today's delegations, clarifying the indication that we don't require confirmation of upcoming inspection appointments, simply because we haven't been able to figure out a way that staff can manage those types of incoming calls and whatnot, and we're limited to our communication resources. So all we have for majority of taxpayers or property owners is the mailing address that they have on file, and that limits us to what we can do with regards to communication to property owners. This year, I'll be coming forth, ideally, hopefully by January, with a sort of a recap on how our 2022 program ran and what our proposed changes are with regards to like internal processes and stuff. One of the main things that we are changing is we are hoping to get initial notices out significantly earlier this year, We had a very tight turnaround window with our program for 2022. So we are hoping to have notices to start going out by late February to provide ample notification time to property owners. But essentially the bylaw change that we're looking at here is just to clarify that it's it's encouraged that you contact us and provide a confirmation, but it's not a requirement for us to be able to go and still enter on the property and carry out or make it the attempt at the inspection. And then finally, just adding a slight clarification to section 4.1 of our bylaw, which is indicating the exemption requirements for a new installation of a system. So we had lots of people this year who postponed their inspection date, indicating that they were going to be installing a new septic system this year because they knew that their system wasn't going to pass our inspections. So we had postponed them to the end of the season, and then everyone was quite busy, installers and homeowners alike. So there's quite a few of those that still went uninstalled and are then uninspected. So they're now in contravention of the bylaw. So that's just more properties for us to have to chase. So we've provided a little bit of clarification on how that exemption will work. It's not a preemptive. We intend to install our system. It's clarifying that system has to have been installed in order for us to move past them. So that, I believe, is the main points of the bylaw wording itself that we actually changed. And then we get into some proposed fee changes. So we extended our list of fees to incorporate different aspects of the program and things that we were kind of getting common complaints on, to try to make those either better clarified for people or provide a little bit of wiggle room there. First and foremost, our inspection fee last year was $180. We are proposing an increase of $17. So this increase is to cover added costs for the finance department, who have facilitated a lot of our invoicing for the program and handled a lot of our incoming payments and fees. So there's a chunk that's been allocated to them. And as well as covering a cost for a new software that we are proposing to use, which is utilized currently by our Public Works Department, called Mesh, which will be using both the inspectors in the field so that their reporting is more streamlined and more consistent with each other, and more easily adaptable. And also to be used on a monthly basis by myself or our new administrative position to help establish more key points for our monthly reporting to bring forth to council to kind of provide updates on how we're making progress. So that fee is proposed to increase from $180 to $197. Next, we are looking at a slightly reduced fee of a partially complete return inspection. So this past year, we ran into lots of properties that had, we went out, and many property owners aren't aware that a sewage, like a septic tank, has multiple lids. So we would go out, and our bylaw requires that both lids be exposed so that we can complete an inspection of the entire system, complete a flow test, and all of sort of that whole scheme of things. And there were a number of times where we would go out and the property owners were not prepared entirely for the inspection, despite our initial notice providing them the information that would help them to prepare for the inspection entirely. So this fee that we've proposed, I believe, sorry, I just have to scroll, as $100. So rather than when we have to return to the property, so they're going to get invoiced for that initial inspection fee of $197 upon our return to property to complete the inspection. we would invoice them an additional $100 to cover the cost of staff transportation and staff time, and follow up that way. So next fee that we're proposing, which is new to the bylaw as well, is a $297 inspection fee for properties that are being inspected outside of the scheduled program timeline. So this could include properties from a previous area that failed to get their inspection completed despite our numerous efforts. But it's also going to include properties that postpone their inspections or avoid their inspections all through the summer and have to be carried out then in like mid to late September, October, and onwards as we're able to. And the reason for this increased fee is to ideally, number one, deter some of those cases, so that property owners aren't using that as a sort of scapegoat to get away from having to carry out the inspection. But additionally, we only have our seasonal inspectors typically until about September 1st, because oftentimes those roles are filled by summer students. So people return to school. So we only have access to the additional staff support until September 1st. So then it falls on to either our staffed building inspectors or myself or whomever to carry out those inspections still to try to clean up the rest of the bylaw. But it just adds to the workload of the people that it wasn't intended for. So that fee we've proposed at $297 to hopefully deter people from that. We are also proposing an added fee of a vacant lot or no plumbing. This is for basically, as stated, we still have to attend the site as inspectors. So our seasonal inspectors are still attending these sites to confirm that people don't have a structure on their lot when they say that they don't, or that there is no plumbing. Oftentimes we arrive on site and there is in fact a bunkie or something along those lines there that people just don't feel should have been included. Or they have a kitchen sink that they've got set up, or an outdoor shower that's just discharging out to the grate or whatever. But so these properties do require follow-up just because sometimes people are ignorant to what our requirements are. So we're proposing that fee as the $100 fee there, just to cover staff time for the effort that goes into that. The next fee is a reduced fee to what is included in our building bylaw fees for our septic review. So one of the remedial actions that we find is as most common is that people are having too many bedrooms based on their approved usage for their sewage systems. We are proposing that when we have to go back because they have chosen to decommission their bedrooms, et cetera, any of the follow-up visits to do with a septic review for the septic maintenance program, we're proposing a fee of $150 versus the $250 fee that is currently standing within the building bylaw. Just as an effort to show a bit of good faith there to understand that some of that inspection has already sort of taken place at our initial visit. We do have to have the follow-up in order to formally decommission those bedrooms, but we are trying to kind of create a common ground or meet in the middle there with property owners to reduce the cost that will fall on them. And then the last two fees that are, the remedial action letter fee. So this fee was existent previously. However, we had it in our previous bylaw, we have it worded as a pump out reminder letter fee. This year, we would like to change that to encompass it as a remedial action letter fee, reminder letter fee in general. So that's for the properties that we've provided their report. There's a remedial action that is required by them. We've set a due date for them and they're now past their due date. And we were sending out sort of a courtesy reminder, a kind reminder that this is what is required of you. We have not heard from you yet. Please provide your follow-up. So that'll be our first step to try to combat rather than going to issuing orders right away, which has been our stance on it or our approach so far. we'd like to take a first step as like a friendly reminder. That fee is $25. We would like to send out that letter. It will automatically be invoiced to them as well for the $25 fee. Ideally, then we'll get some voluntary compliance, and then we won't have to go through the process of issuing orders. However, that may be the next step, but this kind of provides a little bit of a middle ground before we go straight to full enforcement. And then the last two fees are with regards to our third-party inspection reviews. So these fees are unchanged from our previous bylaw. So the first fee being the initial, like the inspection report review fee, which is $50. So that's for the intake of the inspection reports completed by the third-party inspectors. And that can be submitted through our website. We have a form through our website that allows them to pay upon submission. The second fee sort of piggybacks that one. If upon our review of the inspection report, there's missing information, or we have to do some sort of follow-up in some way, and we've deemed that as a failed inspection, then an additional $50 will be required upon the submission of the additional information that we are looking for. Other than that, I think that covers our fee changes and our bylaw changes. Yeah, any questions?
Any discussion on that? How do you come up with nice round numbers like 197 and 297?
So originally we were looking at a $15 increase to cover a $10 added increase as requested by our finance department, as well as an additional $5 to go towards things like purchasing of our new vehicle, our boat rentals that are required and such like that. So an additional increase of fee based on what was required and the workload that went into last year's inspection. And then we got the quote provided to us by Mesh for our reporting software, which we have approximated to work out to about $2 or so per inspection. So we've added that on top of the originally planned for $15 increase.
Okay. Any more discussion? Resolution then, Mallory?
Sure. Be it resolved that council accepts the proposed revisions to bylaw 2022-53 and applicable fees. And further, that a public meeting is to be held on January 24th, 2023 during the regular meeting of council for the proposed changes to the fees for the administration and enforcement of the Building Code Act.
I have a mover and seconder. Pat, Carm? All in favor? Sorry, I missed you again, Nancy. It's hard to watch what's happening here and then to see you up there. It's difficult. I missed you twice now. Okay.
That's
Thank you very
fine.
much.
I will yell when I need your attention.
Go ahead, anytime. Okay, Rob, I think, Carl, is Rob doing the Head Lake Park bylaw?
Yes, I am. So in the last council meeting last month, Andrea Mueller from Parks and Rec asked for permission to update our Head Lake Park bylaw. Since then, myself, Andrea, Tamara, and Andrew sat down on say about a week ago or so, and we proposed some revisions to our bylaw and updating it. I believe a copy was sent in the report. Pretty straightforward, nothing too intense. We developed some fees, sorry, not fees, but fines, along with this bylaw to help us with some actions and tools that will give myself and the bylaw department and actions to go out and penalize people that are ruining our parks by any kind of just damages on our, whether it be the gazebos and that and the new playgrounds that are going to be put in. So if there's any questions from council on any parts of the bylaw, I'd be happy to answer.
Do you need any approvals for these quantities? From anybody, from any, quite often you
So-
have to get approved.
The set fines, if council wishes to change them, they can be changed upon your direction. The set fines and the short form wordings and that will go before the MAG office, which is the Ministry of Attorney General.
That's
They
what I was
have reviewed the bylaw that we are proposing to council. I did send them a copy and ask for any revisions that they thought would be needed, and they sent me two, and it was just on wording. They didn't change anything else. They didn't give me any feedback on the fines, so they're pretty straightforward. If there's something that needs to be changed, that they think that needs to be changed would be changed, and it was just two wordings and two of the sections that I had missed, so they're there for a review. So it's okay. If council does approve the bylaw the way it stands with the set fees, I will again send it back to the Ministry of Attorney General requesting that our short form wording and set fines be accepted and put into the provincial offenses and done under the courts as well. So the courts have a copy of our fines that if I do end up, or any other bylaw officer doesn't end up issuing any of the fines, the courts have a copy of it and approved by the judge in that.
Won't be anybody picking any flowers down there at $100 a whack. Nancy, did you have your hand up?
I did. It's just in the actual staff report in the bylaw, that would also mean the OPP are more than able to enforce these. Would we make sure that they are aware of this new bylaw and that we want them to actively enforce these issues?
So I put that under the officer there. I guess that would be something that would have to be looked at through our agreements with the OPP. I don't make that agreements. Maybe Tamara can comment on that part of it. I did add it in there that if it is part of their agreement to enforce some of the bylaws, then they would be able to enforce this one as well.
I'm sure we could request a meeting to review where the two intertwine.
I'm thinking that, so typically the OPP will not enforce our bylaws. They'll just give us the information. They'll pass along their notes, whatever, to us, information on the individuals responsible that they believe committed the offense, and we would follow up on that. That's typically the way that we deal with the OPP, and trying to, if they come across something that is a blatant bylaw offense.
That's the way it's usually worked. You're right.
Yeah, I was thinking for the overnight occurrences that often occur down in the park.
Right.
That's when they're on duty.
Right, and that's what they do for most of the other bylaws as well, like our noise in our fireworks bylaw. They'll take the information and excuse me, their dispatch will leave me a message on my phone, and I'll get it the next day or the next day that I come back into work. So if it happens on the weekend, it'll be there for Monday morning when I come back into the office, and I'll investigate from there.
Any further discussion on this? Okay. Resolution?
Be it resolved that council receives the draft Head Lake Park bylaw as information and provides staff direction on further updates and revisions to be included in the bylaw, and further directs that the final bylaw be brought back to the January regular meeting of council for adoption.
Moving seconder. Carm and Barry, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Carl, Rob, and Bree.
Thank you.
Okay, finance, Barb.
Yes, good morning. So we have here the disbursements for November, totaling just over $3.1 million. Of that, 2,879,000 is for vendor payments. Notable in November is we did make a payment to our contractor for the roads capital works for just about $1.3 million. So that number is up higher than usual. Total payroll disbursements were approximately 224,000. And again, the total was just over 3.1 million.
I maybe missed something here, but we don't look at the accounts anymore? There's an
No, we
account-
haven't done that for quite a while, actually.
Must be the last term. Because Nancy used to come in all the time. Well, I still think it's an option council can do. Somebody wants to look at the account.
Oh, if you have certainly if you have a question on
Yep.
something.
Nancy?
Before we were much more automated, everyone kind of took turns and went in and went through a file this thick. If there's anything specific, any questions or anything that's unusual, Barbara usually reports on that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I realize that, but sometimes it's nice to ask questions. If you don't see the product, you can't ask a question. Okay. So that's the check summary. Mallory, is there any discussion on that? Okay, Mallory.
Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the November 2022 check summary report.
Mover and seconder. Carm, Pat, all in favor? Carried. Investments. That's what we like to hear.
Yes, so some great opportunity here with the recent spike in interest rates. Staff reviewed and determined there was some surplus cash that could be invested into some low risk investment tools. So we've purchased guaranteed income certificates. 3 have been purchased from general operating funds. And so we have various term rates. So 1 year is at 5.35, 2 years at 4.9, and 3 years at 4.7%. So overall interest income that will be earned over the term of those 3 certificates is $281,000. And then there was also $1 million from reserve funds invested for 1 year at the 5.35, and we will benefit from $53,500 for interest income for reserve funds.
Pretty good interest.
Mhm.
Good. Any discussion on that? Okay, resolution.
Be it resolved that council received the staff report for the purchase of guaranteed income certificates dated December 7th, 2022. Certificate numbers are LD-00027, LD-00035, LD-00043, and BBLT-00019.
Okay. Mover and seconder. Barry and Walt. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Barbara. Okay. Administration.
Yes, so I can start with this one. So this is a bylaw to appoint our integrity commissioner. So this would be for the current term of council, but it will start on in January. So January 1st. So the integrity commissioner, of course, is responsible for the application of the code of conduct. Also, if any of you need advice on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, because it can sometimes be quite confusing to see if you have discretionary or pecuniary interests on any item, you would reach out to this individual. And then anyone who thinks that some rule or procedure has been contravened would complain or submit a query to this person, and then they would do an independent investigation. So basically the 4 local municipalities and the county of Haliburton did interviews together and put out a call for expressions of interest. And the selected individual is Tony Fleming from Cunningham Swan. He has a lot of experience. He is an integrity commissioner for a lot of other municipalities. I believe the county has already appointed him, and others will be doing the same throughout this month. So this is just a bylaw to do that. Any questions, please let me know.
It's good to see that we're all voting the same way. Okay. You have a resolution then?
I do, so I'll read it. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-110, being a bylaw to appoint an integrity commissioner effective January 1st, 2023, be read a first, second, third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached here too.
Mover and seconder? Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Land Division Committee.
Okay, so this is a yearly appointment to the county's Land Division Committee. The past term, what we did is the deputy mayor served as the appointee, and then the mayor served as the alternate. So we kind of had a little conversation, and I think that's okay again, but you guys let me know.
Walt, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am. No problem at all. Yes.
Is there so if you're not there, I would go, but I'm happy if somebody else wants to go. But, okay, everybody okay with that? Okay, resolution.
Okay, be it resolved that council recommends the appointment of Deputy Mayor Walt McKechnie to the County of Halbert Land Division Committee for 2023, with Mayor Murray Ferry appointed as the alternate.
Okay, mover and seconder. Barry and Pat, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
So the next
Committee and count structure.
Yes, so every year or every term rather, when we appoint a new term of council, we kind of go through this. So obviously we have a few standing advisory committees of council, and then we have external boards that we need to appoint to as well. So this all wraps in the procedural bylaw will outline how those committees work and when they meet, and the appointment bylaw will of course appoint everyone. So we have some suggestions in the report, but that can be up for discussion as well. Kind of some based on what we've done in the past or who we think might fit. And then because we need to give notice, this meeting will be giving notice that we're going to pass this in January. In addition to appointing people to different committees, there's some recommended changes through the new, obviously the new procedural bylaw. So one is currently we do committee of the whole meetings, which you guys haven't experienced yet, but we would do a committee of the whole and then a council meeting. The suggestion is to move to a council only structure. Committee of the whole is a bit limited. You can't pass a bylaw on it. So you're kind of just recommending to council, but you're the same body. So it might be better, it might improve efficiencies to just do 2 council meetings. And the idea there would be that the majority of our departments would probably go to the first council meeting of the month, so the second Tuesday, and then largely planning will be the end of the month because planning is usually quite a large section of our agenda. They also hold public meetings, so that takes up a bit of time in the morning. Another suggestion on this is to appoint 1 member of council to each of our committees. Previously, we had 2 members of council. Another suggestion is to move to a quarterly meeting schedule for our cultural resources and Glebe Park committees. Of course, if there's some item that they need to address, they could meet between then at the call of the chair. But the idea is to try to move towards that quarterly meeting schedule. Another suggestion is to remove sign relief requests. We currently have a sign and property standards committee, but sign requests would just come directly to council, just as any other request does. And that's, of course, requesting relief from the bylaw. So a lot of people just go within the sign bylaw, but some people want to do something special with their signs. So they would have to request it through council to go against the sign bylaw. And then property standards committee, in the past, we've tried to recruit 3 public members. We weren't successful last term. We got 2 public members. But in a property standards committee, you really only need 3 people. So the suggestion here is to appoint it from council, and then they meet as needed. So they don't meet all the time. It's only if someone has a property standards dispute. And then the last suggestion would be to allow each committee to appoint their own chairperson. So who's the most appropriate out of the group, they would make their own appointment. And that's a lot of information. Is there any questions from anyone, or how do you want to?
I can see everybody's excited about where they're going here.
Yeah.
Well, if you're not comfortable going there, this is a good time to say so. And I mean, sometimes you have to go for a month or two or a meeting or two to figure it out, you know?
I also want to point out that once the appointment bylaw is passed, it's not the end. If someone started in at a committee and they're really uncomfortable, you can pass an appointment of bylaw again the next month, right? Or the next meeting. So it's not set in stone for the whole term. It'd be nice if it was, but it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be set in stone. So that's another thing I'll point out.
I think it's good because then everybody gets a chance to see everything if we move them around at the end of a year or two. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The sign and property, you didn't name any three counselors there?
I did. So currently we have Walt, Tammy, because Tammy was on it last time, and Carm.
Oh, okay,
The
okay.
three. That's up to discussion as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I know Tammy knows the process because she's been in it before. And again, it's
Right.
only as needed. We did have more than usual last term, but it would no longer involve sign issues. Like the sign bylaw would now come, which was a lot of our meetings last time. So yeah.
Okay.
So if you guys want, I can list, I can list what we have, although I'm sure you guys can see it in front of you. So this was just through discussion with Murray and Walt. We have to put someone in, right? So we just kind of put in suggestions to start off the conversation. So for Glebe Park and Museum, we have Barry. Cultural Resources, we currently have Pat. Site and Property Standards, we have Walt, Tammy, and Carm. Halliburton BIA, that's Pat because he's Ward 1. Rails End, Nancy. West Guilford, obviously Carm. Harcourt Community Center would be Tammy. Kawartha Halliburton Source Protection Authority is Walt currently. Upper Trent Water Partnership, we have Barry in there, correct? Yes. And Harvest Halliburton, we have Pat.
I see in your.
Go-
Change it to Murray? Did you change it to?
No.
No. Yeah, resolution of children.
Does it? Upper Trent?
Just in the back.
Yeah, I changed it. I changed it to, I don't know why I had Murray listed there, but I changed it on my.
That's
stuff.
what I was wondering, if we had discussion and changed it after the fact.
We did. Yeah. Is anyone really uncomfortable with an appointment they have and they don't want to go to even one? And I guess that's where we'll start the conversation.
Well, Barry's only on one, so that puts him on the second one. That's fine. If he's got an interest in that. Yeah. You're good at that?
You're also not expected to know everything before you go. They're gonna have to give you a bit of education, obviously, because it's just,
They may be meeting once or twice a year, and that's probably in Peterborough.
yeah.
Mallory, I'm down here for 3, which isn't a problem, but do I have a chance to review kind of like, I went to a BIA meeting already, which was great. Harvest Halliburton and the Cultural Resources Committee, I don't know how often they meet or what the framework is there. Is that something I could look into before I commit to that or no?
Yeah, so Culture Resources will meet quarterly. So once in February, once in May, once in August, and then November. You can look into it. We can change it. So the bylaw will read with your names in these spots, but we can change it on the day too. So we'll review this again in January.
Okay.
So Harvest Halliburton is largely reviewing, like a lot of their stuff is obviously local farming and the farmers market. I think the comment was, well, you keep bees, so we'll put you.
That was me. That was me.
Went. Yeah. So
There's no
if
denying
anyone-
that.
if anyone else, Pat, you are on a lot. I will say that Pat's got an advisory committee and he's obviously got BIA, which is quite a large area. I don't know if anyone else would offer to be on Harvest Halliburton. They don't. I don't know that they've been meeting that often lately, but it's local farming and often dealing with the farmer's market and so on. So,
That's all fine, Mallory. Again, I just didn't know that what that entailed, that. So I don't mind sitting there. Did you mention Harvest Halliburton meets 2 or 3 times a year, or I missed that?
I
Do you
don't,
know?
I think they typically meet monthly. Tamara, do you know the answer to that? I can reach out to them too.
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Harvest Halliburton, do you know how often they meet when things are rolling along?
I'm thinking probably quarterly. It's not very often,
Quarterly.
but we can. find
Okay.
out.
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's quarterly, I'm fine with both or all 3.
We'll try and find
Okay.
out what their meeting schedule
Sure.
is too.
Sure. Sounds good.
Cool. It's all good.
All right. Should I read it the way it is now? And if there needs to be a change at the January meeting, we'll amend it. We'll pass the bylaw as amended is what we'll do. Is anyone in there talking? Because I can't hear anyone.
That's because I had my mic off.
Okay, I kind of thought it was odd that you guys went
So we're
silent.
ready for a resolution then.
Okay, and then before we do that, is everyone okay with the changes proposed to the committee structures?
I just have one question.
Yeah,
Can you run that by me again, with the committee of the whole and what's going to happen in regard to scheduling of the-
Sure.
Okay, please.
so before committee of the whole, we ran obviously a committee of the whole, which was the same group as council. And most staff came to that meeting. And then obviously anything that just needed to be approved went to council. So that was kind of the way we had the structure before. Now it would be 2 council meetings a month. So instead of one being committee of the whole, they're just 2 council meetings. So staff can do everything under the power of a council meeting at both meetings now. So it'd be exactly the same schedule. Council would only hold 1 meeting still in January, July, and December because there isn't enough time to hold 2. If we run along here and we find that we don't need 2 every month too, we can look at it again. Again, the procedural bylaw can be amended again. We just have to give notice for it. So if we're finding that we don't need 2 council meetings most months, we can look at that again. But the we're going with right now is the same structure we had last term with committee of the whole and council, but they're just both council now.
The problem with committee of the whole is you deal with it and then you deal with it again next month. So it puts staff through all the going, and if there's something we find out we need to correct, we'll do it at the next meeting. I think it'll work. It worked for a lot of years. So it'll work. Okay, so we're good to go on the committee structure then? Ready? You ready?
Okay. I've got a long resolution to read here, so be
Take your time.
Okay. Be resolved that council hereby gives notice that the new procedural bylaw and appointment bylaw will be reviewed and passed at the January 24th, 2023 meeting. And further, that council appoints the following members to Dysart committees and external boards. Glebe Barker Museum Committee, Barry Boyce. Cultural Resources Committee, Pat Casey. Sign and Property Standards Committee, Walt McKechnie, Tammy Donaldson, Carm Sawyer. Halliburton Business Improvement Area Representative, Pat Casey. Rails and Gallery Board Representative, Nancy Wood Roberts. West Guilford Community Center Board Representative, Carm Sawyer. Harcourt Community Center Board Representative, Tammy Donaldson. Kawartha Halliburton Source Protection Authority Representative, Walt McKechnie. Upper Trent Water Management Partnership Council Representative, Barry Boyce. Harvest Halliburton Representative, Pat Casey.
Okay, I'm gonna have a mover and seconder. Walt, Carm. All in favor? Carried. It looks like I'm not on anything, but I can go to any of them. I'm ex officio, so I can just, if you can't be there, just call me.
Yeah,
We'll be there
and-
for you.
Yeah, so Murray's ex officio and everything. He just doesn't count as quorum. So he's not a member for quorum, but he can vote on everything and attend, obviously, as mayor.
Okay, electronic monitoring.
This is just a very brief policy that we're required to implement, just to make sure that employees are aware of any opportunities that we might have taken to monitor their whereabouts. That could include everything from IT and software programs to iPhone finders to AVLs in the trucks. So it's a government requirement under the Working for Workers Act, I believe. I don't have it open right now. But that's basically it. Yeah. Anybody have any questions
No, I
on that?
think it's a good thing, I think. It is. Safety issue. Okay, resolution,
Be it resolved that council approve the electronic monitoring policy as presented.
mover and seconder, Pat and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. And the next is a letter from Nancy Elstone.
Yes, so I'll take that one. So through the Retail Business Holidays Act, there's certain days designated as days of rest. So there's certain things you can sell, but there's certain things you can't. So one of the things is food that you're able to sell, but then certain areas sell, of course, liquor as well. So in the past, these establishments have come to council to get approval to sell on the holidays because they're open anyway. And so because they've expanded it to include more days, I've now have a resolution that includes every day that they have under the act so that they're covered on all of them. And basically we just press a resolution saying, yep, they're able to sell it if they wish to. And it continues this way unless it's revoked.
I don't want to do anything to hurt Nancy here, but I wonder if Bill Burden and people at Halliburton Lake missed this. And then they wouldn't be able to sell on Christmas.
Yeah, so we could,
Could we include them all?
yeah, so what are the other ones? One's Fort Irwin, right?
Yeah,
Point Murray. Just give me a second, because we.
Harcourt, I think, Harcourt.
What's it called? Fort Irwin, Marina, would that be?
West Guilford.
I'd like to pass them all at once, because I wouldn't like them to get into a situation where they couldn't sell over the
Yeah,
holiday.
and that's what would happen over the holiday.
Yeah.
I think there's only 4, isn't there?
In our jurisdiction. Where'd you say it? Eagle Lake, Fort Irwin, West Guilford?
West Guilford, yeah, and Harcourt.
Harcourt, that's right. Yeah, so there's.
What is the West Guilford one called? Sorry, I couldn't hear that because the mic wasn't on.
West Guilford Shopping Center, sorry.
Shopping Center, and Harcourt, what's the Harcourt one called?
South Algonquin Country Store.
So Algonquin Country Store. Okay, I'm gonna try to read this. Hopefully it reads well. All right, be it resolved that council approves of the Eagle Lake Country Market, Fort Irwin Marina, West Guilford Shopping Center, and the South Algonquin Country Store, selling beverage alcohol, which is the term they make us use, on the following holidays: New Year's Day, Family Day, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and Christmas Day. And further, this approval shall remain in effect each year unless revoked by the municipality.
Good. Mover and seconder. Tammy and Carm, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Thanks, Mallory. Now, I guess we bring Jeff in. We'll get him started anyway. And I guess Sue Harrison's not coming, but Andrew Hudson's coming to speak on this. Are going to zoom in. Oh, there's Sue. There's Sue. Okay. We're good. Okay, are we ready? Sue, do you want to? Or Jeff, do you want to go first?
Good morning, Mayor. I believe our planning manager, Chris Orson, will speak to this file. It was last at council in November of 2022 where it was deferred. I'm not sure if Chris has more information to provide today, but I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Jeff. No additional information. This is just a returning file. As council has heard this application on November 22nd, 2022 at their council meeting, and they deferred the decision of the application to allow council additional time to consider the information that was brought forward and discuss, and that was discussed during their November 2022 meeting. The application is proposing 2 severed lots and 1 retained for a total of 3 on the subject property. And as noted, I believe Sue Harrison is in attendance to speak to the application.
Okay, who's speaking this? Andrew or Sue, or both? Sue, are you commenting here?
I just unmuted. So
You are?
yes, I would like to comment. I believe Andrew wanted to speak too. I'm not sure if you want to go first or.
You go first, Sue.
All right. Okay, I can certainly start. So through you, Mayor and members of council, thank you very much for taking the time to give us this opportunity to speak to the file. I'm here on behalf of Marnie Blair, and she is the property owner at 2572 Sawyers Lake Road. I'm the authorized agent, and I am here to provide a planning rationale, which I would ask council to carefully consider before making a decision on this file. We appreciate you taking the time to do so. As Chris said, it involves the development of, or the creation of 2 sizable lots and a retained lot that is a little bit smaller in size. Marnie has asked me to speak to you and clarify her intentions for these properties. She and her family have a very long history in Dysart. The lands contain a heritage forest and sugar bush operations, which have been in place for over 100 years. In honor of her father, Lee Blair, and her uncle, Lloyd, and all those that gather there annually, she wishes to divide the land to pass it on to those who she is sure will continue the use as the heritage forest and the sugar bush. She's very attached to these properties, and she wishes to ensure that the family tradition continues for future generations. It's my understanding that the triangular lot on the east side is currently being considered for future municipal use, and as I understand it, is bogged down in the legal process at the moment. So as Chris said, council reviewed this first in November and deferred the decision, and it's before you today to provide pre-consultation comments on the application. We will take those pre-consultation comments to the county when we make an official submission for the severances. And as we know, the Land Division Committee at the county is the approval authority for consent in Haliburton County. So Dysart planning staff has recommended the council not support the application. Part of the rationale cites a policy 1.1.1D of the Provincial Planning Policy Statement 2020. The Provincial Policy Statement is the overarching provincial planning policy document in the province of Ontario, and all development that occurs in the province is to be consistent with the directives of that policy statement. So I agree with Chris that this policy is particularly relevant in reviewing this application. I do, though, respectfully offer a different interpretation of that policy and what it means in terms of this application. So section 1.1, it deals with managing and directing land use to achieve efficient and resilient development and land use patterns. And then it has a number of subsets which offer certain ways to do that. The one that's particularly relevant here is subsection D. And here's what it says. Healthy, livable, and safe communities are sustained by avoiding development and land use patterns that would prevent the efficient expansion of settlement areas. So we have no question that this property is certainly located close to the settlement area. And the county and Dysart have a 1,000 meter setback, which they prohibit the creation of new lots. It's a blanket statement. It's not tied to providing a planning rationale. It's not tied to assessing the proposal based on good planning on a case-by-case basis. So this property, 2/3 of this property is included in that 1,000 meter setback, which applies. So I agree that this is within the 1,000 meter setback, but is outside the current village settlement area. But I do take exception to the notion that creating large parcels of this size in any way could prevent the efficient expansion of the settlement area in the future, if and when Dysart ever chose to extend the boundary to include these lands. We're not proposing small lots that would fragment the parcel fabric and make it difficult to develop plans of subdivision in the future. The approval of these lots would not make future development, if it was ever deemed appropriate of these lands, impossible or even challenging. So both the county and Dysart have the policy in place that prohibits the severances within 1,000 meters of all urban and rural settlement areas. That's a huge area within the Dysart and within the county. Attached to the staff report is a map that we presented at the last meeting, which just shows the village of Haliburton on its own with the 1,000 meter setback. And as the policy is being implemented, that entire area between the settlement area and the setback is frozen. No new lots are being considered. Doesn't matter whether they make good planning sense, they're just prohibited. It's a huge area. It's over 2,000 hectares just for the village of Haliburton. So I don't believe that this aligns with the intent of the provincial policy statement. The statement is very clear. It seeks to ensure that efficient expansion of settlement areas is safeguarded for the future. It clearly does not prohibit new lots when they can be established. When we can establish that they constitute good planning. The proposed lots, from my perspective, the proposed lots are compatible with the rural context. They conserve biodiversity. They sustain the benefits of nature to contribute to our quality of life. And they constitute good environmental planning and sound land use planning. They in no way prohibit efficient expansion should the settlement area boundary ever be moved to include this area. There are lots of room for plans of subdivision on these lots. Finally, I just would also like council to be aware that in October, a similar application went to County Land Division Committee. And staff had also recommended not supporting that application based on this provincial policy statement 1.1.1D. Again, the question came back to whether the proposed severances would limit efficient expansion of the village or the settlement area in the future. The members of the Land Division Committee were really uncomfortable with the policy. They asked the senior planner for the justification. He said, we don't want to fragment the parcel fabric with a bunch of small lots, that it was better to have large lots retained, which these are. The whole committee was really uncomfortable with the discussion, and they all unanimously supported the application and granted approval. Further, they asked the county planning staff to look at this policy and bring a report back to county council in the future. So we're asking council to consider the planning application before you Based on the planning rationale we provided, we believe the application is consistent with the provincial planning policy statement, section 1.1.1D, and in no way would the proposed lot prohibit efficient expansion should the village settlement area ever be increased to include this area. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Andrew, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Oh, I just thank you for the opportunity to look at this again. I think I don't, obviously the world's changing for you, for the council. Bill 23 is going to change a lot. We're talking about 3 large parcels here. The smallest one's 15 acres, which the confusion for me and certainly for our client Marnie is you've already paid for that survey. Council paid for that. It's already done on the 15 acres. So to get turned down was kind of interesting. We brought forward another one that was 200 acres divided in half that Marnie had. Marnie's good with, you turn that down to make 200, or previous council turned down 200 acre lots out of that. That one as well, I thought we could push. Marnie's not worried about that. That's her old, where she lives. She's good with making selling the farmers 200. This one helps her decide what she wants to do, and she really wants to protect that sugar bush that most of you know where it is, and give her some options. They're large parcels. I can't see, you're going to be looking at provincial policy as change intensification regardless, but we're hopeful that you'll take a look at this.
Okay. Does the floodplain mapping get done here at any level?
Pardon me?
Is there floodplain mapping? Does it get done at this level, or when there's severances, or what happens here? I'm asking planning staff. Does anyone know? Yeah,
I may be able to answer that, Mayor. Through our official plan policies, it directs us to look at both the county wetland DU layer, as well as our wetland layer in our official plan. Currently, the county is doing work to update their wetland layers. They've taken on floodplain mapping, and they've also, they're working with, sorry, forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of that group right now, but they are working to update their wetland layer. So once they've done that, we will, they'll update their policies and it'll trickle down into our official plan mapping.
but right now it's not happening, right?
No, I don't think currently they call that wetland, that little swale in between the two of them, right? I think it's got that little, it's not even, it's a seasonal creek, if anything, but I know where you're speaking of. But with we're talking on that one, that's shared between the 15 acres and the 77 acres, I think.
Yeah, I think it is too.
But I don't think they consider that wetland now on the mapping. Jeff could help me with that, but I don't think it's currently considered wetland.
Well, if we're looking at the 15-acre lot, as per the county official plan, there is considerable wetland DU on that property. So at the time, if we were proposing development, it would have to do some sort of environmental impact study to address that. It's quite possible that may be out of date, but we don't know that until we receive an environmental study.
Anyway, we can move forward here, I think. Okay, any discussion on this? Sue?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just wanting to clarify, by creating these lots, if there was development proposed in the future, they would have to follow all of the usual process.
I understand that. Yeah.
So the wetlands would have to be assessed at that time.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay. So, well, it sounds like the county's going to pass it anyway, no matter what we do anyway. But Nancy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did lots of homework since our initial meeting that we saw about this, and even if Dysart chooses not to do anything with that small parcel, it is a small parcel that if it's wetland, you could develop some sort of educational programs for the schools and stuff to use. But I think now, after all the homework, and I think I'm in support of this.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, Mallory, I think, have you got a resolution?
I do have a resolution if we're going towards support. I'll read it. It's lengthy. Chris, can I ask that you pay attention? I know you're gonna anyway, but just make sure that I'm reading it the way that should be read. So, okay, so I have a resolution to support here. So is council okay with me reading it out?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so I'll go ahead. So be resolved that council approve the general principle of this consent proposal for file number D00-SV 2022-007 Lands of Blair on the property legally described as the lands in front of Part 1, Lots 1, 2, and 3, Concession 7 in the geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al., resulting in 1 retained lot and 2 severed lots, subject to the following conditions and comments received through the public review process. 1, subject to a 5% parkland dedication or cash in lieu at $1,000 per severed lot. 2, subject to an environmental impact statement to address wetland areas and deer wintering area. 3, subject to a site development plan for the proposed Lot C. 4, subject to zoning bylaw amendment to the satisfaction of the municipality of Dysart et al. 5, subject to an entrance permit obtained through the municipality of Dysart et al. 6, subject to section 17.5.6 of the municipal official plan that the applicant is to provide a mineral/aggregate impact report related to the adjacent pit. 7, digital drawing files of the reference plan shall be provided to the satisfaction of the municipality of Dysart et al. 8, the registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes. 9, subject to pay all administrative fees owed to the municipality. And 10, prior to the endorsement of the deeds, Land Division Committee is to receive a clearance letter from the municipality confirming that conditions 1 to 9 have been fulfilled. The applicant is to make this request to the municipality for said letter.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Do we have a mover and seconder? Tammy? Pat? All in favor? Carry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue and Andrew. Okay, Jeff, the next one is this just for information? What are we supposed to do with this? This letter from Tony Usher?
Correct. The next item is a letter from Tony Usher, who's planning consultant for Harbor and Holdings Limited. It is provided for information purposes only and no directions being requested. Having said that, if council has any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Everybody's read that, I assume. I guess that's between him and Leora, I think. He's clearing his name there, or trying to. Okay, so we're right at 12 o'clock. So we probably should break. And
Murphy, I'll just read, if it's okay, I'll just read the resolution to receive Tony's letter, if that's okay, before we go into close.
yeah, we can do that.
Sure, and then we can
It came to us.
Yeah, okay. So I'll read it out. So be it resolved that council receives a letter from Tony Usher, planning consultant for Halliburton Holdings Limited, dated November 29th, 2022.
Mover and seconder, Barry and Walt, all in favor? Gary. Okay, now we can adjourn.
Now, I'd suggest we go into closed so that we can continue right on with our meeting. Yeah, so we should probably enter into close now if council's comfortable with that.
Okay, we're going right into close.
Yeah,
Then we'll break.
yes.
You don't think close is going to be very long, do you?
No, she means we'll just do the motion to get into close.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Just the motion. Okay.
No, yeah, sorry. Yeah, just the motion. So I'll read
Thought
the,
you wanted to do closed.
no. I'm gonna let people eat their lunch.
We have lots of things we want to say in closed.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll read,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Resolution then?
Yeah, be it resolved the council adjourn its regular meeting at 12:02 PM to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as amended pertaining to A, security of property of the municipality or local board, information technology systems, B, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, committee of adjustment appointments, C, proposed disposition of land in the township of Dysart, disposition of a road allowance, E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, class and access, and to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(3.1) of the Municipal Act as amended for the purpose of educating or training members on the status of local development.
Mover and seconder? Carm and Pat, all in favor? Carried. So we just need to adjourn now?
No, we're just in close now, so we'll just all turn our cameras off and we'll be back when we're finished. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, and then we'll go back to Jeff after that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay, Mallory, we need a bylaw to constitute the appointment of the members of Committee of Adjustment.
Perfect. I'm just finding it here in my notes. I've got a lot of things open. 1 second. Here it is.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-114, which is a bylaw to constitute, empower, and appoint a committee of adjustment and delegate authority to make decisions on minor variances from any bylaw that implements an official plan, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Be it resolved that the following members of the public are appointed to sit as members of the Committee of Adjustment for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, effective December 13th, 2022. Don Plopple, Jerry Walker, and Chris Bishop. Be it resolved that the following members of council are appointed to sit as members of the Committee of Adjustment for the 2023 calendar year, effective January 1st, 2023. Barry Boyce, Tammy Donaldson, Pat Casey, and Carm Sawyer.
You've heard the resolution, mover and seconder. Tammy and Walt, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion? Being none. Confirming bylaw?
I'll read that resolution.
Yes.
Be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-115, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council held on December 13th, 2022, be read a first, second, and third time, pass, sign, and the corporate seal attached hereto.
Mover and seconder. Pat and Barry, all in favor? Carried. And now, the adjournment.
Okay. Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held on December 13th, 2022 at 2:04 p.m.
Tammy and Carm, are in favor? Carried. Merry Christmas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.